The story dates back to the time of the Abbasid Caliphate, when the Abbasid Caliph Al-Wathiq Billah had a dream in which the dam built by Alexander the Great, Dhul-Qarnayn, to prevent the invasion of Gog and Magog had been breached. This terrified him, so he assigned Salam AlTarjuman the task of embarking on a journey to locate Dhul-Qarnayn's dam. Al-Idrisi narrates the details of this journey in his book Nujat al-Mushtaq fi Ikhtiraq al-Afaq, as does Ibn Khordadbeh in Kitab al-Masalik wal-Mamalik. According to their accounts, when Al-Wathiq Billah dreamt that the dam between Gog and Magog had been opened, he summoned Salam AlTarjuman, who spoke 30 languages. The Caliph instructed him, "Go and inspect this dam and bring me news of its condition." He provided Salam with 60 companions, 5,000 dinars and 10,000 dirhams as a ransom. Each of his companions received 5,000 dirhams, along with a year's provisions and 100 mules to carry water and supplies. The men were also given libabid, garments made from wool and hair. Salam carried a letter from the Caliph to Ishaq ibn Ismail, the governor of Armenia in Tbilisi. The governor wrote recommendations for them to the ruler of the Saria region, as well as the ruler of the Alans, and eventually to Filan Shah and Tarkhan, the king of the Khazars. The king provided them with 5 guides, and they traveled for 25 days until they reached a foul-smelling blackened land. They journeyed through it for 10 days and eventually arrived at ruined cities. They traveled through these cities for 20 days, and upon inquiry, they were told that these were the cities destroyed by Gog and Magog. They then reached fortresses near the mountain where the dam was located. The inhabitants of these fortresses spoke Arabic and Persian, were Muslims, recited the Quran, and had schools and mosques. Each fortress was separated by 2 farsakhs. Finally, they arrived at a city called Ika, which had iron gates and fields. This was where Dhul-Qarnayn once camped with his army, and it was a 3-day journey from the city to the dam. Then we reached a high mountain with a fortress on it, and the dam built by Dhul-Qarnayn was a pass between 2 mountains, with a width of 100 cubits. It was the path through which they Gog and Magog would emerge and spread across the land. Dhul-Qarnayn dug the foundation 30 cubits deep and built it using iron and copper. He then raised 2 pillars along the mountain slopes on either side of the pass, each 25 cubits wide and 50 cubits thick, and the entire structure was built with bricks submerged in copper. Atop the pillars was an iron lintel, 120 cubits long, and above that was more construction with iron bricks up to the top of the mountain. The height of the structure was as far as the eye could see, with the building above the lintel standing 60 cubits tall. On top of that, there were iron turrets, each with 2 prongs that intertwined with each other. Each turret was 5 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. There were 37 turrets in total, and an iron gate with 2 massive panels was attached. Each panel of the gate was 50 cubits wide, 75 cubits high, and 5 cubits thick, supported by pivots matching the size of the lintel. Neither wind nor air could penetrate the gate or the mountain. The gate had a lock that was 7 cubits long, as thick as an arm's span in circumference, and so large that 2 men could not embrace it. The lock was 25 cubits above the ground. 5 cubits above the lock was a bolt, which was even longer than the lock, with 2 pegs, each 2 cubits long. The bolt had a key attached to it, which was 1.5 cubits long. The key had 21 teeth, with a circumference of 4 handspans, and it hung from a chain welded to the gate, 8 cubits long and 4 handspans thick. The ring holding the chain resembled a catapult. The threshold of the gate was 10 cubits wide and 100 cubits long, and beside the gate were 2 fortresses, each 200 cubits in size. And in one of the fortresses, there were the tools used for building the dam, including iron cauldrons and iron ladles. There were also remnants of the bricks that had stuck together due to rust. The leader of those fortresses would ride out every Monday and Thursday, and the guardianship of the gate was passed down from generation to generation. Just as caliphs inherited the caliphate, he would knock on the gate, creating a resounding noise. The purpose of this knocking was so that those beyond the gate would hear it and know that the gate was still intact and being guarded. On the right panel of the gate it was inscribed, "When my Lord's promise comes to pass, he will level it to the ground, and my Lord's promise is ever true." The mountain from the outside had no peaks or slopes. It bore no plants, grass, or any other form of vegetation. The mountain was smooth, broad, upright, and white. After Salam AlTarjuman examined the dam, he returned towards Khorasan, then to Tabnawin, and from there to Samarkand within 8 months. He then travelled to Azbishab, crossed the river Balkh, and proceeded to Shirsana, Bukhara, and Termidh, eventually reaching Nishapur. During the journey, 22 men died on the way to the dam, and on the return, 24 more perished. For further clarity, we cite the words of Yaqut al-Hamawa regarding Salam AlTarjuman's expedition. Al-Hamawa states in his Mu'jam al-Buldan, Geographical Dictionary. Among the well-known stories is that of Salam AlTarjuman. He continues, "The Caliph Al-Wathiq Billah had a dream in which the dam built by Dhul-Qarnayn between us and Gog and Magog had opened. This dream terrified him, so he summoned me and instructed me to travel to the dam, inspect it, and report back. He provided me with 50 men, granted me 5,000 dinars, and gave me a compensation fund of 10,000 dinars. He also provided 200 mules to carry food and water." Salam further recounted, "We departed from a city in Iraq called Samarra with a letter from the Caliph to Ishaq ibn Ismail, the ruler of Armenia, in Tbilisi, instructing him to facilitate our journey and meet our needs, and to write to the kings along our route to ease our passage. When we reached him, he fulfilled our needs and wrote to the ruler of the Sara, who in turn wrote to the king of the Alan people. The king of the Alan people wrote to Filan Shah, and Filan Shah wrote to the king of the Khazars. The king of the Khazars sent 5 guides to accompany us, and we travelled for 26 days. We arrived at a land with a foul stench, and we had brought vinegar with us to sniff, as advised by our guides to mask the odour. We travelled through this land for 10 days, then came upon ruined cities where we journeyed for another 27 days. We asked the guides about the cause of the ruin, and they replied that it was the work of Gog and Magog. We then reached a fortress near the mountain where the dam was located. We passed briefly through several other fortresses. In these fortresses lived people who spoke Arabic and Persian. They were Muslims who recited the Quran and had mosques and schools. They asked us where we came from and where we were heading. We told them that we were messengers from the commander of the faithful, Caliph. They were astonished and asked, "The commander of the faithful, is he an old man or a young one?" We answered, "He is young." They asked, "Where does he reside?" We replied, "In Iraq, in a city called Samarra." They responded, "We have never heard of such a place." We then journeyed with them to a smooth mountain that had no vegetation. There was a valley 150 cubits wide cutting through the mountain, and on either side of the valley there were 2 pillars built into the mountain. Each pillar was 25 cubits wide, and the visible portion below the gate was 10 cubits tall, all built with iron bricks. These bricks were embedded in copper and were 50 cubits thick. There was an iron beam, 120 cubits long, extending between the 2 pillars, with 10 cubits of it resting on each side. Above this beam was a structure built from the same iron and copper bricks, reaching to the top of the mountain. The structure's height was as far as the eye could see, and atop it were iron battlements. Each battlement had 2 horns bent toward each other. The gate was made of iron with 2 leaves, each 60 cubits wide and 70 cubits tall. The gate was secured with a lock, 7 cubits long, and as thick as a man's arm span. The lock was 25 cubits above the ground, and the door's threshold was 10 cubits wide and 100 cubits long, not counting what was beneath the pillars. The leader of the fortresses would ride out every Friday with 10 horsemen, each carrying an iron hammer. They would strike the lock and the gate numerous times to ensure that those behind the gate could hear it and know that it was still intact. When they struck the gate, they would put their ears to it and hear a loud noise from beyond. Near the dam there was a large fortress about a league away, and 2 more fortresses stood by the gate, each 200 cubits wide and the same in length. At the gates of these fortresses, there were large trees of unknown species. Between the two fortresses was a fresh spring. In one of them, the tools used for building the dam were stored, including cauldrons and iron ladles. There were also remnants of iron bricks stuck together from rust. Each brick measured 1.5 cubits long and 1 span thick. We asked if anyone had seen Gog and Magog, and they said that they had once seen a group of them above the battlements. A black wind blew them down toward us, and we saw that each of them appeared to be about 1.5 cubits in height. When we departed, our guides led us toward Khorasan. We traveled until we were 7 leagues behind Samarkand. The entire journey, from when we left Samarra until our return, took 18 months. Yaqut al-Hamawa concludes, "I have recorded what I found about the dam from various books, but I cannot guarantee the accuracy of the reports due to the differences in narrations. Allah knows best the truth of the matter. Regardless, there is no doubt about the existence of the dam, as it is mentioned in the Holy Quran."